911, what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing? It's good to see you all. I have missed you. It's different in the true crime world where we're not talking Delphi constantly. Just kind of strange, right? It's just a new normal after all these years. Thinking about the case every single day, thinking about working on something to do with the case every single day. It's just been kind of odd, kind of going through an emotional downturn, I guess, with it all, trying to get and find a new normal when it comes to my channel and what my brain thinks about. I still think about Abby and Libby every day. I'm still thinking about the families. I know that the holidays are coming, and the holidays are always a really hard time for anyone who has lost children or family members that they will be missing, whether they are not with us anymore or if they are away on the other part of the world because, you know, they're deployed in the military, or just simply because of the miles that separate you. And there, people sometimes just aren't able to travel and get together. And it can be a really hard time emotionally. And I always think about Abby and Libby's families at this time of the year. Libby's birthday is at the end of December. We're going to have a sentencing 5 days before Christmas for Richard Allen. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I think it's a lot, and it's a lot for the families to, you know, try and maneuver and get through. And so my heart goes out to them. And just because I'm not talking about Delphi every day anymore. Trust me, I am thinking about Delphi still, and everybody in that community. But it is so good to see all of you. For everyone who's here that is stateside, happy Thanksgiving. We have just a couple more days to get through, and everybody will be celebrating, I hope, with family or close friends. I know that some people will be spending Thanksgiving alone. Tom Webster comes to mind. Tom is going to be spending Thanksgiving alone. He's doing a cooking show on Thanksgiving. So for those of you that will have time or whatever, make sure you tune in and catch his Thanksgiving live stream that he's going to be doing cooking on Thanksgiving if you have time. Tom did his last Delphi live chats this past weekend. They were really, really good. I was able to tune in. I wasn't able to chat live, but I was able to tune in later on replay and watch. It was really good. So if you guys have an opportunity to check that out, make sure you go and do that. I want to give a shout out to Sleuth Intuition and his channel. Sleuth's been covering the Flora case and the Flora fire, and I am so excited to see that. Anybody that is out there that has a really decent platform and a good group of subscribers who follow the channel and can treat each other with respect and love in the chats, I'm all for covering the Flora case. It needs it, and I'm really excited about it. What else did I want to catch you guys up on? I've got a video that we'll be posting later today. I'll probably get it up sometime tonight on this channel. I did post a video on my other channel, The Twisted Hippie. So go check that out. I will be having more content on my other channel because now I'll have time to actually put into that channel. I really haven't had that much time since summer when I started it because of everything going on with Delphi. Hey, Mitzi Scott, good to see you. Hey, Frank Meister, my friend, how are you? I miss you so much. Frank and I used to talk multiple times a day, every day, for the last year, especially with all of the court dates and all of the things going on in the Delphi case. Frank and I became very close, talking about the case and doing lives together. So I miss you. And I look forward to us working together on other cases. Hello, get out of my kitchen. Good to see you. Hey, CJK, how are you? Hope everything is well. Hi, Olivia, too. Hey, Deb from Deb's True Crime Notebook. Guys, if you have not seen Deb's live stream that she did with John Kelly, the profiler, on his channel, please make sure you go check it out. She and John did an amazing job breaking down the innocence or guilt of Bridge Guy and talking about a lot of the different things that went on with Richard Allen and his psychosis and all of that. And it was an extremely well thought out and well put together show. I respect both of these creators so much. John Kelly is just he's just an amazing guy. Everything that he's been through, as you know, he had his own addiction, and getting through that, and becoming a doctor and being able to go and talk to some of these offenders. He's talked and interviewed serial killers. He is just really knowledgeable in this. And I always loved his perspective on Delphi. I think he did over, I don't remember for sure, some 90, I think, or more videos on the Delphi case. Maybe it wasn't that many. I can't remember now. But he did a lot of videos on Delphi and followed the case very closely. And I think that, he said all along that this case was sexually motivated. And I think that a lot of us felt that way. And as it turns out, we were spot on with that. Hey, Jill, how are you? Good to see you. Hi, Melissa. How are you? Hey, Gibbo. Hey, Misha. How are you? Good to see you. Um, yeah, this case, I have done other things on this case in the last couple of years and have talked about it, but I kind of got sidetracked with everything going on with Delphi and I kind of let it kind of go, but I'm catching back up. So, hey, Bridget, good to see you, my dear. How are you? Hey, Lisa, thank you so much for being here. Hey, True Crime Housewife, how are you? I hope I don't put you to sleep, but I understand it's a big week. There's a lot going on. Um, oh, hold on here. It is hard to let go of Delphi, and they will be forever remembered. The girls will always be a part of my memories and a part of me. I mean, they really became a huge part of me. Oh, I want to see that. Um, Lisa, I saw that the other night when I was looking through Netflix. I really want to watch that. Hey, Steve. How are you, my dear? You bought a turkey that oddly favors ruckus, huh? That's funny. I hope you're well, my friend. I wish you and Mrs. Steve the most blessed of Thanksgivings. I hope you get to spend quality time with those grandbabies, lots of kisses, lots of hugs, and that you get to relax just a little bit for those couple of days, and that you can, take time to just enjoy the meal and enjoy that family time. You so deserve it. Yes, it is for members only. I do believe his Cooking with Strangers videos will be put out for non-members on Sundays. I think he said, but the first time that they're released, it'll be for members only. He is lovely. I was so fortunate to get to meet him when I was in Delphi, and I didn't get enough time with him, but at least I got to meet him and give him a hug. And he is he's a really neat person, and I look forward to his cooking shows. I'm really excited about those. Lisa says, True Crime Web, I got a YouTube suggestion that I thought was ruckus, but was an 80-year-old man. So I need to apologize to him. Poor ruckus. I love my ruckus. Yeah, I'm actually Thursday. I'm going to my daughter's best friend's house for dinner and the meal. I'm making some sides to take to that, And then on Saturday, I'm planning on making my own Thanksgiving dinner here and having my brother and his wife over on Saturday. And then I'm going to a concert. A friend and her fiance are in a band, and there's a concert on Saturday night that I will be going to. So some really great music. I'm looking forward to that. Hey Shane, how are you? It's so good to see you. I meant to give you, hold on one second. I just want to give me one minute here, guys. Mm. Mm. Oh, there we are. Okay, there we go. I wanted to add Shane as a moderator in my channel. Okay. Hey, Big Country 48. How are you? Good to see you. Hey, Mustang 1965. Good to see you. Hey, Lynn GMB. Thank you for being here. Hey, Ruckus. How are you? Hey, Gail. So good to see you. Stopping in to say hello and hit the like. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I'm super busy. My son is coming in from Houston, expecting a full house. Be safe, all. Hope you have a wonderful holiday, Gail. Thank you so much for stopping in. Hey, buddy. How are you? It's so good to see you. I've missed you. Oh, I hope your job goes well, True Crime Housewife. Starting a new job at the holidays can be really stressful. Yes, as Ruckus enters the chat. Oh, Ruckus, I hope you and your lovely wife have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And that you guys get to spend it together and enjoy the holiday. I hope that you do. True Crime Web says at Ruckus Rocks, laughing out loud, not a lot of difference going to a store and you. I always wind up carrying baggage. Oh, it's the Sherpa. Oh, that sounds good. A pumpkin caramel cheesecake. Oh, wow. So much good food. I can kind of smell it. Thanksgiving is one of those holidays where it's all about the smell. It's all about the smells. Ruckus says, My wife doesn't. I only keep the oven because that's where I hide her Christmas gifts. Oh, Shane, you're so welcome. I've been wanting to do it for a while and just didn't. And I wanted to do it tonight. So. So yeah, tonight we're going to talk about the Bryan Kohberger case, the Idaho 4 murder case that happened in 2022 in Moscow, Idaho. I do want to do a synopsis of the case to bring people that are not familiar, which I get that some people just don't follow every case out there and stuff. But in the mid-November of 2022, there was an off-campus residence that housed University of Idaho students in it. And within that home, 4 of the students that lived there, actually 3 of the students that lived there and 1 of the students' boyfriends, were brutally murdered in the middle of the night. And the fact that this happened stunned the community of Moscow, Idaho. This is a college community. It is a quiet community, and they just don't have these kinds of cases. The investigators and the police grappled with what the town's police chief would later describe as a very complex case. Where have we heard that before? No suspect was immediately named in the deaths of these housemates. Madison Mogan, age 21, Kaylee Gonsalves, 21, and these 2 girls were best friends since grade school. And Xana Kernodle, age 20, as well as Xana's boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, age 20. A murder weapon was not found, although it was believed to be a large fixed blade knife. And the reason that they believed that was because the killer left behind a knife sheath on the bed beside Maddie Mogan, which later would become extremely important because DNA is found on that knife sheath. The intense scrutiny on this case, especially in the very beginning, caused thousands upon thousands of tips to roll into the FBI. 7 weeks later, after the crime was committed, and you got to remember that this small community was just reeling from this, and there was all kinds of speculation on who could commit such a horrific, violent crime. People were speculating on old flames of the girls, and people that maybe they ran into at the bar that night. Was it somebody that they waited on? Because a couple of the girls worked in a bar setting, a bar where they serve food. But 7 weeks after the crime, the police in Idaho announced an arrest in Pennsylvania, of all places. And it was of a doctoral student in criminal justice. If that is not crazy, what else could be, right? I mean, this case is so unbelievable at times. The Lake Tahoe County prosecuting attorney Bill Thompson said at a news conference when they announced the arrest in late December that this was not the end of their investigation, but in fact, it was a new beginning. And it kind of reminds me, this case, in so many ways, and I've said this in other videos and other live streams where I covered Idaho, there's a lot of similarities to this case to Delphi and some of the things that were said. But let's go over the timeline and some of the key moments in the case. On November 12th of 2022, starting at around 9 p.m. in the evening, Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle are seen at a party at Chapin's fraternity Sigma Chi, a short walk from the King Road apartment house where the roommates lived. And that night, Kaylee Gonzalez uploads pictures to her Instagram account featuring photos of the four friends along with two other roommates from the house with the caption, "One lucky girl to be surrounded by these people every day." That photograph has become a symbol of these friends who lost their lives that night. At about 10 p.m. that evening, Gonsalves and Mogan go to a sports bar in Moscow called the Corner Club. Now, on November 13th of 2022, at around 1:30 in the morning, Kaylee and Maddie are seen ordering from a nearby food truck. And this was video that was shown on YouTube and all over the internet based on this food truck's live stream, because they would live stream from their food truck. And investigators say that Xana and Ethan returned to the 3-level house on King Road at around 1:45 a.m., while Kaylee and Maddie take a car ride home, and they arrive home at around 1:56 a.m., according to investigators. Meanwhile, two other housemates who had gone out that night had arrived home before the others at about 1 a.m. And this is, again, according to law enforcement. At 11:58 a.m., a 911 call is placed on the cell phone of one of the other housemates requesting assistance for an unconscious person. Both of these two housemates were unharmed in this crime. Police alert the public about the deaths in a news release, and while they say no one is in custody, they do not believe there is an ongoing community risk based upon information gathered during the preliminary investigation. This announcement kind of leaves everyone in shock. Since no one's been arrested, why do they believe that there's not an ongoing risk to the community? And that kind of sends social media into a frenzy. And everyone decides, what's going on? Let's jump in and see what we can try to find out and see who or why this horrible tragic event happened. On November 16th of 2022, with no suspect apprehended, the Moscow police walk back previous comments that there was no threat to the large rural city of almost 26,000. We do not have a suspect at this time, and that individual is still out there, Moscow Police Chief James Fry said at a news conference. He also adds that more than 25 investigators with the Idaho State Police and the FBI are assisting them in the case. Outside the University of Idaho, they have a I know it's like a wall. It's like a brick wall with the University of Idaho name written on it. People go there and start placing flowers as a memorial in front of the campus entrance sign on November 16th. And this flower memorial flowers and candles and memorial continues to grow as the days progress. On November 17th of 2022, preliminary autopsies are done, and the results that came in, and they show that the 4 victims were likely attacked with a very large knife and died sometime after 2 a.m. from multiple stab wounds. That is what the Latah County Coroner Kathy Mabbutt says. And she describes the wounds on the victims as pretty extensive. On November 18th of 2022, police say the victims were most likely asleep when they were slain, and some of them had defensive wounds. There was also no sign of sexual assault. Meanwhile, the detectives seized the contents of 3 dumpsters near the home to search for possible evidence, and they contact local businesses to determine if a knife had recently been purchased. On November 30th of 2022, a vigil is held at the campus on the University of Idaho in honor of the victims, with some family members in attendance. We are going to get our justice, Steve Gonsalves, Kaylee's father says, adding that his daughter and Maddie had been best friends since the 6th grade and had learned that they were in the same bed when they were killed. They went to high school together, and then they started looking at colleges, and they came here together. They eventually get into the same apartment together, he said, and in the end, they died together. On December 1st of 2022, the Moscow police reaffirmed that the quadruple homicide was part of a targeted attack, after the authorities appeared to suggest the opposite. We remain consistent in our belief that this was indeed a targeted attack, but have not concluded if the target was the residents or its occupants. The department also continues to dispel online rumors and speculation and says it has cleared certain people seen interacting with Kaylee Gonsalves and Maddie Mogan on the evening they were killed. Police also say the 2 housemates who were home during the attack had been sleeping that night. On December 2nd of 2022, the 2 housemates, Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen, released letters saying that they are struggling to accept why the lives of 4 beautiful people were taken so brutally. On December the 5th, detectives focused on Ethan Chapin's and Xana Kernodle's activities on the evening they were killed and asked the public for information about the nearly 5 hours from when the couple arrived at the Sigma Chi party to the apartment house on King Road. On December the 6th, police say they recognize how frustrating the lack of news can be for these families and for the public, but insist that they do not want to jeopardize this case. We are at the point in this investigation where we are still gathering information, we are still gathering tips, and we are still gathering evidence. And we're doing everything that we need to do, Fry says in a video that was posted online. On December 7th of 2022, police began removing personal items of the victims from the apartment house and returning them to the families. They also announced what appears to be an integral part of the investigation, and they say they are looking to speak with any occupants of a white Hyundai Elantra from either 2011 to 2013 with unknown license plates. They do not say whether they believe the driver is linked to the killer, but they say that this person may have critical information to share. On December 15th of 2022, Christy Gonsalves, Kaylee's mother, expresses frustration during an interview with NBC's Today Show that she only learned about the police interest in the Hyundai Elantra when the rest of the public did, and underscored how some victims' families are feeling left in the dark. On December 21st of 2022, Fry tells NBC News that his department is in daily contact with families, and we have asked them to be patient as the investigation progresses. The police chief again insists the investigation is not a cold case, and our end goal is to bring somebody to justice for those families and for those victims. On December the 30th of 2022, the police announced an arrest of a suspect, Bryan Christopher Kohberger, age 28. He's a resident of Pullman, Washington, and a doctoral student at Washington State University. He is apprehended, however, in northeastern Pennsylvania, about 2,500 miles from the Idaho campus, and charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and burglary. According to 2 law enforcement sources, DNA evidence played a key role in linking the killings to Bryan Kohberger. And at a news conference, Fry says he believes Kohberger is the only suspect. What I can tell you is that we have an individual in custody who committed these horrible crimes, he says, and I do believe our community is safe. On December 31st, 2022, the public defender of Monroe County, Pennsylvania, where Bryan Kohberger is being held, says that the suspect intends to waive his extradition hearing to face charges in Idaho. He should be presumed innocent until proven otherwise, not tried in the court of public opinion. Jason Labar says in a statement, adding that Mr. Kohberger is eager to be exonerated of these charges and looks forward to resolving these matters as promptly as possible. On January 3rd of 2023, Bryan Kohberger appears in court and agrees to return to Idaho. And on January the 4th, Bryan Kohberger is flown across country in a Pennsylvania State Police plane and booked into the Latah County Jail in Latah County, Idaho. On January the 5th of 2023, Bryan Kohberger makes his first appearance in an Idaho courtroom and is ordered held without bail. Another pretrial hearing is set for January 12th. Investigators say male DNA discovered on a knife sheath was used to link Bryan to the crime scene, and that they had been tracking his car, which was a white Hyundai Elantra, and cell phone use in the area, according to a newly released court document. On January the 18th of 2023, a list of items that were seized from the search warrant for Bryan Kohberger's Pullman, Washington apartment is made public. And we learn that the belongings included a pillow with a reddish-brown stain, disposable glove, and at least dozens of strands of hair. On February 28th of 2023, a search warrant for the home of Bryan Kohberger's parents in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, reveals more items seized, including 4 medical-style gloves, a silver flashlight, and buccal swab DNA test. On March 13th of 2023, prosecutors seek data from major tech firms such as Apple and Amazon, as well as social media platforms and retailers, as part of their investigation, according to court documents made public. They also request bank and social media information tied to the 4 victims in order to build a digital picture of the crime and the suspect. On April 21st of 2023, Funk, one of the surviving housemates, files a motion to quash a subpoena that would require her to testify at Bryan Kohberger's preliminary hearing in June. While an investigator for his defense said in an affidavit that she knows information that would be exculpatory to the defendant, Funk, in her motion, said, "The statement is without support and there is no further information or details pertaining to the substance of this testimony, its materiality, or the alleged exculpatory information." On April 26th of 2023, Bethany Funk agrees to interview with the defense counsel according to a court filing, but she won't have to travel to Idaho. On May 4th of 2023, newly released police body cam video shows Bryan Kohberger being pulled over for allegedly running a red light in Pullman, Washington in October of 2022, about a month before the slayings in Moscow. Washington State University campus police let him go with a warning. On May 16th of 2023, a Latah County grand jury returns an indictment against Bryan Kohberger on the murder charges, paving the way for an arraignment and trial. On May 22nd of 2023, Bryan Kohberger, during his arraignment, stands silent when asked to enter a plea, prompting the Latah County District Judge, John Judge, to enter not guilty pleas on his behalf on the murder charges and burglary charges. And a trial is tentatively set for October the 2nd. In addition, prosecutors have 60 days to give notice if they'll seek the death penalty. On June 16th of 2023, DNA on the knife sheath found at the off-campus home directly links Bryan Kohberger to the crime scene, according to court documents filed by the prosecutors. On June 22nd of 2023, Bryan Kohberger's attorney says in a court filing that there is no connection between him and the slain students, and that other men's DNA was also found at the scene. His attorney also claims that police investigated various possible suspects, many of whom provided DNA, including at least one who allegedly had his DNA surreptitiously taken from a discarded cigarette, and others who had their phones taken and downloaded, the filing says. June 26, 2023, prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty against Bryan Kohberger if he is convicted, writing in a court filing that aggravating circumstances in this especially heinous killing led to the decision. Idaho has not carried out an execution since 2012. On July 4th of 2023, some families of the victims speak out against the University of Idaho's plan to demolish the King Road residence before the start of the fall semester on August 21st. The home itself has an enormous evidentiary value, as well as being the largest and one of the most important pieces of evidence in the case, an attorney for the Gonsalves family tells the Idaho Statesman. But the school responds that neither the prosecution nor the defense is objecting to the demolition. On July 12th of 2023, reversing course, the University of Idaho says it will halt tearing down the King Road residence. We know that every action and decision around this horrific incident is painful and evokes emotions, University President Scott Green said in a statement. That is why every decision we have made this far is with the families of the victims and our students in mind. On July 25th, 2023, Bryan Kohberger's lawyers file a motion seeking to get his indictment dismissed, arguing that the grand jury was misled as to the standard of proof required for an indictment. They say that the standard should be beyond a reasonable doubt, but claim the grand jury was erroneously instructed with presentment, which they say would mean having a reasonable ground for believing the defendant has committed an alleged offense. On August 23, 2023, Bryan Kohberger waives his right to a speedy trial during an appearance in Latah County Court, where his legal team says it may not be ready by the October start date. A new date has not been immediately decided. His lawyers also say they will file a motion to strike the death penalty and file another motion seeking to ban cameras in the courtroom. October 31st, 2023, federal investigators returned to the King Road home to gather more evidence and create a replica of the residence that can be used at trial. On November 13th of 2023, the University of Idaho marks 1 year since the slayings with a vigil in the victim's honor. On December 14th of 2023, Bryan Kohberger's defense team is permitted inside the King Road home to gather documentation it needs before trial. December 15th of 2023, a Latah County District Court denies the defense team's request to dismiss the indictment against Bryan Kohberger on various reasons. Bryan Kohberger has failed to successfully challenge the indictment on grounds of juror bias, lack of sufficient admissible evidence, or prosecutorial misconduct. Judge John Judge writes, Kohberger was indicted by an impartial grand jury who had sufficient admissible evidence to find probable cause to believe that Bryan Kohberger committed the crimes alleged by the state. Details of this ruling itself remain sealed. December 21st, 2023, the Latah County prosecutors file a request for Bryan Kohberger's trial to be held in the summer of 2024. December 28th of 2023, the King Road house is demolished, despite objections from 2 of the victims' families who say it should remain standing for trial in the event it would help understand what happened. But Latah County prosecutors tell the University of Idaho in an email from December 22nd that the current condition of the premises is so substantially different than at the time of the homicides that a jury view would not be authorized. On March 1st, the Gonsalves and Kernodle families release a statement voicing their frustration after a judge at a hearing suggests the murder trial likely won't begin until 2025. On April 17th of 2024, Bryan Kohberger's lawyers file an updated alibi defense saying that cell phone tower data will likely show he liked to take late night drives along the Washington-Idaho border, but was miles away when the victims were killed. They said they intend to rely on testimony at trial from cell tower data expert Cy Ray. On May 31st, 2024, a hearing is scheduled for June over whether to move the trial out of Latah County, and that is delayed until August 29th. The filing comes a day after another pretrial motions hearing in which Ray testified. On June 27th, the judge lays out a plan that would allow Bryan Kohberger's trial to commence in June of 2025. Both his legal team and prosecutors agree. August 29th, 2024, a change of venue hearing is held to determine whether Bryan Kohberger's trial should be moved out of Latah County, but the judge says he needs more time to conduct research before making the decision. On September 5th of 2024, in new filings, Bryan Kohberger's attorneys argue that the state's pursuit of the death penalty violates the U.S. Constitution. On September 6th, the judge grants the defense request for a new trial venue outside of Latah County, but doesn't immediately decide where. On September 12th, the Idaho Supreme Court orders the trial to be moved 300 miles from Latah County to Ada County, where the state capital of Boise is located. The case is expected to be reassigned to District Court Judge Stephen Hippler. On October the 8th of 2024, Stephen Hippler, the new judge in the case, orders the trial to begin on August 11th, 2025, and says it could run about 3 months, including a penalty phase if needed. And just so you guys know, what was I going to say? The motions about the death penalty those motions have been heard. The death penalty is going to stand, and they are going to be allowed to seek the death penalty. Hold on one second, because I was looking up something. So the trial is scheduled for August 11th of 2025, and it's expected to run through November 7th of 2025. The jury selection is scheduled to begin July 30th of 2025. The trial proceedings are expected to begin each day at 7:30 in the morning Pacific Standard Time and will conclude at around 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So much shorter court days than we saw in the Delphi murder trial. A final pretrial conference is set for May 15th of 2025 and will continue through May 16th of 2025 if needed. And we all know from the Delphi case that the pretrial conference is basically where they find out if they have everything that they need and are ready to go. And we now know that the trial is going to be held in Boise, Idaho, instead of Moscow, Idaho. And when Bryan Kohberger filed his change of venue motion in January of 2024, it was requested because of the extensive inflammatory pretrial publicity that his lawyers have said this case has garnered in Latah County. According to the motion, several factors surrounding the case make finding an impartial jury difficult, including the severity of the crimes and the small size of Latah County. The size of the community and the interconnectedness of its citizens is very problematic and will prevent a fair and impartial pool of potential jurors, the motion said in part. It goes on to state widening the jury pool won't do anything to overcome the pervasive prejudicial publicity because the community is too small to avoid bias. A fair and impartial jury cannot be found in Latah County owing to the extensive inflammatory pretrial publicity allegations made about Mr. Kohberger to the public by media that will be inadmissible at his trial. The small size of the community, the salacious nature of the alleged crimes, and the severity of the charges Mr. Kohberger faces, the motion said. And the judge agreed and found that Bryan Kohberger was more likely to receive a fair and impartial jury in Ada County. And Bryan Kohberger was transferred from the Moscow County Jail to Ada County Jail in September of 2024. The prosecutors in the case have sought to seek the death penalty, and the defense team was adamant and was arguing that it be removed from the table based on a number of different arguments that referenced international, federal, and state law. Judge Stephen Hippler of Idaho's 4th District Court questioned many of the claims, and prosecutors noted that the state Supreme Court has allowed the death penalty to stand against similar arguments. Hippler said he would issue a ruling on the motions at a later date. And under Idaho law, a jury must unanimously impose a death sentence and can do so if they find at least one aggravating factor in the crime. Prosecutors are arguing for aggravating circumstances. In Idaho, the death penalty is considered the maximum penalty when it comes to defendants who either plead guilty or are found guilty of first-degree murder. Lethal injection would be the legal form of capital punishment. And if lethal injection is not available, then it's death by firing squad. The night before the murders on November 12th of 2022, Maddie Mogan and Kaylee Gonsalves went to this local bar and ate at a food truck, as we just said. And Ethan and Xana went to a party at Ethan's fraternity. At 2:47 a.m., Bryan Kohberger's phone left his residence at Washington State University and traveled south through Pullman, Washington, before it stopped reporting to the network, which investigators said is consistent with the phone being turned off. At 2:50 a.m., the Washington State University surveillance video captures this white 2015 Hyundai Elantra traveling towards State Route 270, which connects Pullman to Moscow, Idaho. Multiple videos from the King Road neighborhood allegedly capture Bryan Kohberger's Elantra driving around several times about 40 minutes later. Around 4 a.m., Xana Kernodle receives a DoorDash delivery, and phone records show she was using her phone and she was on TikTok. At about the same time, one of the roommates woke up to what sounded like Kaylee Gonsalves playing with her dog before hearing Kaylee Gonsalves say, "There's someone here." The roommate said she looked outside her room after, but did not see anything. The roommate reportedly later heard what sounded like crying from another victim's bedroom and heard a male say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." After hearing the crying, the roommate opened her door a third time and reportedly saw a man in black clothing and a mask walk past her as she stood in a frozen shock phase. She said she closed her door and locked it as the man left through a sliding glass door. At 4:20 a.m., the Elantra was seen leaving the area at a high rate of speed on Palouse River Drive, which eventually leads to Pullman. 28 minutes later, Bryan Kohberger's cell phone begins reporting to the network that provides coverage to Highway 95 south of Moscow. DNA evidence obtained from a knife sheath found at the scene from Bryan Kohberger's parents' house was tested at the Idaho State Lab, court documents revealed. The results showed that the DNA from the parents' house was almost certainly from the father of the person whose DNA was on the knife sheath. FBI agents tracked Bryan Kohberger from Washington State to eastern Pennsylvania for several days before he was arrested on December 30th. According to investigators, Bryan Kohberger and his father made the 2,500-mile road trip in a white Hyundai Elantra, the same make and model as a car spotted near the murder scene. The motive in the murders remains one of the biggest questions in this case. Investigators have not revealed why Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan were killed or how Bryan may have known these victims. Families of the victims said they did not know who Bryan Kohberger was when he was arrested. There's been a lot of speculation about whether or not he was stalking these victims, because the law enforcement revealed that Bryan's phone had pinged over 12 different times outside of the home on King Road in the months prior to the murders. Hold on one second. On November the 20th, there was a hearing held in Boise, and where they did talk about the death penalty. And the defense team tried to persuade the judge Stephen Hippler to block the trial that's scheduled for August from becoming a capital murder case. But Hippler found that Bryan Kohberger's defense had failed in providing an alternative method of execution in Idaho to death by lethal injection or firing squad that is not unduly painful. Hippler said in his order Tuesday, defendant must come forward with an alternative method, he concluded. He has not done so, thus foreclosing his claim. Idaho's alternative to death penalty for a first-degree murder conviction is life in prison with at least 10 years served before a subject becomes eligible for parole. Prosecutors have said in court filings that there are 4 aggravating factors in this case against Bryan Kohberger, who turns 30 on Thursday. So he had his 30th birthday last Thursday, making the crime more severe and meriting the death penalty. They are that there are multiple victims, that the murders were especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, that the suspect exhibited utter disregard for human life, and that the suspect has a propensity to commit murder, which will probably constitute a continuing threat to society, according to the filing. A jury must concur that at least one aggravating factor pertains for a defendant to be sentenced to death in Idaho. The jury must also unanimously agree to impose the death sentence. At the hearing, Idaho Deputy Attorney General Jeff Nye argued against the defense claim that the death penalty is unconstitutional because it would be dehumanizing to have Bryan Kohberger sit on death row for years and years and years if the state does not have a viable method to administer an execution. You don't get to short circuit the whole thing that death is off the table, Nye said, adding, that's not to say decades from now there's not going to be a method to put him to death. And the reason this is an issue, just so you guys can understand, is because Idaho was trying to put another inmate to death and was having trouble getting the drugs. Because there is such an outcry in this country over the death penalty being unconstitutional, a lot of these drug company manufacturers of the drugs that they were using to make the cocktail for lethal injection don't want their drugs used in this manner. And so they're having trouble getting them. However, Hippler noted at the hearing that the state did get the necessary drugs as it awaits to execute inmate Thomas Creech, who was convicted of 5 murders in 3 states and sentenced to death in 1983. His execution remains halted as he appeals after the state's attempt to execute him in February was abandoned when prison staff members failed to establish an IV line in the death chamber. They couldn't, it wasn't due to drugs or anything, they just couldn't get an IV in him. An alternative method to lethal injection, death by firing squad, was signed into law last year, but a revamped chamber to allow for it has yet to be constructed. But according to Judge Hippler this past week, it has already been started. The construction has already been started upon the chamber for the firing squad. Ann Taylor, Kohberger's public defender, has also challenged the prosecution's claim that her client deserves the death penalty because he could pose a future danger to society, which she contended is vague because defendants are routinely accused of being dangerous. That can't be true when you sit in court day after day after day and you hear that about person after person after person, Taylor said. This statute doesn't do anything to help a jury decide who is the worst of the worst. And as I said before, a motive remains unclear in this very complex case. Bryan Kohberger was a resident of nearby Pullman, Washington, and then a doctoral student at Washington State University. There is a gag order in place in this case, and it has prevented many of the players involved in this case from speaking publicly. And the prosecution has said it expects to present at trial DNA evidence, details about Bryan Kohberger's cell phone use and security videos to connect him to the crime. Bryan Kohberger's defense has maintained that he often went on these late night drives and that the cell phone tower data would show that he was doing so miles away when the 4 students were killed. In a filing this month, the defense asked the court to suppress evidence at the trial, including the DNA samples it believes were improperly obtained by law enforcement and violated his constitutional rights. The trial, as we've previously noted, has been moved to Boise from Latah County after the defense successfully argued there would be a strong possibility of bias among potential jurors and that the community does not have the resources for such high anticipated proceedings. Steve Gonzalez, Kaylee Gonzalez's father, supported moving the trial and told NBC News before the judge's death penalty decision that he wanted to see Bryan Kohberger locked away and no longer influencing society. He said Kaylee was a very loving girl whose spirit is greatly missed. So yeah, that's pretty much what we've got going on in Idaho, you guys. Hey, Gray, how are you? Good to see you. So I'm going to try and catch up on the chat a little bit, guys. So give me a minute. Hey, David, how are you? Good to see you. Yeah, it is strange that no one called police for hours after this crime happened. However, when you stop and think about what these girls were going through, the 2 roommates that were still alive in the house, first of all, one of them was down on the bottom floor. The other one was on the same floor as Xana and as Xana's room. And the fear that she may have had, depending on what she did here, we just don't know yet. There's just not been enough that's come out as to what led to that. I have a feeling that it was fear and that they weren't sure what was going on. And when the house became so quiet and nobody was moving about, I think that they were scared. And I just think it was these kids were scared. So I think when she opened her door, the little bit of a crack, and she saw this figure, this large, because Bryan Kohberger's a tall guy, and if he's dressed all in black, you can see, and he had a mask, I think, over his face, a mask of some kind on his face. So I don't know if it was like a mask for that, that you would wear for COVID. I mean, I don't know when they said that. So we don't know that yet. But we've learned a lot, you guys, from the Delphi case. And one of the things that we've learned is that when you're speculating and when you're trying to make or fill in holes on information that we don't know, you have to be really careful in doing that because we could be wrong. We absolutely could be wrong. So, I don't think, I honestly do not think that Dylan was seen. I do not believe he saw her. And I believe that he was so emotionally exhausted from what he had just done, because anybody that studies this type of crime that I've heard talk about this case has said using a knife to commit a crime like this in such a vicious nature is absolutely physically exhausting. What it takes physically to do what he did, he would just be exhausted. And I absolutely believe that the only thing that saved her was the fact that he did not see her. I just don't believe that he saw her. I believe that she saw him, but he did not see her. And she had her door cracked. So, and even though he may have looked in her direction, doesn't mean he saw her. I do think it's very interesting that he was staking them out. I think the fact that he made multiple trips to that King Road address months prior speaks a lot to premeditation in this crime. The fact that Bryan was, we found out that on Reddit he put out a questionnaire asking about for people who have been convicted of violent crimes to talk about what they looked for in victims and why, some really bizarre questions that he put into this supposed research that he was doing for a paper. I do believe that either Maddie or Kaylee was his target. I tend to lean more to Maddie, simply because Kaylee had already left school and had moved out of the house, and she was she only came back that weekend because it was homecoming weekend, and she had just gotten a new Land Rover or Range Rover and wanted to show off her new car. She wanted Maddie and them to get to see the car. She was extremely proud of it, which she should have been. And it's sad to think that that decision is what ended her life. Because she shows up, and that's why she was sleeping in Maddie's bed, because she didn't have a bed in her room anymore. She had already moved out. She was graduating in December. She was done with school, and she had already gotten, she'd already had her job offer. She'd already been hired, and she was moving to Texas, I believe, for her new job. The low light testing I conducted with a fully open door, the mannequin was unable to be seen from 3 feet away. Absolutely, Steve. That's what I figured. I just figured that, and like I said, when you have somebody who's in that heightened emotional state that he would have been in for what he had just done, his focus, he could have looked right through her and not seen her. And I agree, Mitzi. I hope that once the gag order is lifted and people are able to start talking, because I believe that Catherine Ramsland isn't talking because she's a professional and she doesn't want to do anything to undermine the case. But as we all know, Bryan Kohberger was a student of Catherine Ramsland there in Pennsylvania, at the college where Catherine is a professor, and she taught him. And it'll be really interesting to hear what she remembers about him. where would we all be without Steve's tests? Seriously. I mean, going back to all the tests that he did for the Delphi case, I mean, what can we can't, there's just nobody out there that would put their wife, in the woods in and drag him by the ankles or the shoulders or whatever he did through the leaves. um I mean, it's just wild. you know Steve's, where would we be without Steve's tests, you guys? He has helped us so much in understanding crime scenes and the way things work. You know what, Gray? To me, that is so. I've watched a lot of the stuff that you've done on Idaho, and again, you know, kudos to you. You have done so well and so much for Delphi. With all of your map skills, and your map skills in Idaho are just as good. I think the mapping that you did, showing his movements and his cell phone movements, when you actually went and drove it yourself, those were amazing. So I highly recommend, if you guys haven't gone and looked at some of Gray Hughes Investigates work on the Idaho case, you're missing out, because he's done a lot of really hard work that actually show why Bryan Kohberger's the guy. I mean, I think it's going to be really hard for them to get past this cell phone data, even though they say they have cell phone data that's going to show him miles away. I don't believe that. I just don't believe that. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah. Um, I think he thought he was smarter than everyone else. I think Bryan Kohberger has that kind of an aura about him. He thinks he's smarter than everyone else, and I do believe in many ways that he was trying to figure out how to commit a perfect crime. I think we may find that out at some point, that that's what this is about, and that it was his attempt to get away with a perfect crime. And you know, he made some mistakes. He really made some mistakes. Turning off your cell phone and then turning it on again, to me, that's such highly suspicious behavior. Like, why would your cell phone stop pinging at this certain time? And what would you, again, that alone doesn't spell guilt. But again, it's like what we've talked about before. It's the totality of the evidence that they have against you, right? So when we look at all of these things stacked one upon on another, that's what we have. We've got all of these things leading to Bryan Kohberger. And it's not, to me, it's not incidental that his DNA is found on the thumb, on that knife sheath, on that snap. I don't think he meant to leave that knife sheath behind. Stop and think, if he hadn't, they probably would never have arrested him. And Gray could be right. Maybe he did leave it on purpose, but maybe he didn't realize that his thumbprint was on the snap. Bryan seems to be the kind of guy who wears gloves and doesn't like to, I mean, why would he be going through the garbage at his parents' house or dealing with garbage and wearing gloves? you know and it's like, I just, um I often wonder to myself of how that all kinds of plays out for him with the jury, because going back to Delphi, when we're talking about, again, I think these two cases, we have so many similarities if we really look at them. And the jury is going to be the ultimate, no matter what we think or how we feel about it. It's not about us. It's about the 12 jurors that are going to hear the case about Bryan Kohberger's guilt and whether or not the evidence points to him. His eyes in that car when they stopped him in Indiana, which again, I thought that was the most bizarre thing ever. Where on earth, of all the places for them to stop him on his little trek across the country with his dad, they stop him in Indiana? And they don't just stop him once, they stop him twice. He just looks wild to me. Yeah, exactly. That is one of the things, though, that gives me, it's just bone chilling to me. Who says to a girl who's crying, it's okay, I'm here to help? I'm assuming she's crying because he has already killed Ethan. And, I mean, that to me just spells psychopath. Absolutely. And I just, I think he got surprised by Kaylee being there. I don't think he thought, I think he didn't expect her to be there, because I think he was probably, looking out at the house and had been there enough. And I just really don't think he thought that he was after Maddie. And I don't think he expected to find her best friend in her bed, which somebody woke up because somebody had defense wounds in that room. And it sounds like it was Kaylee Gonsalves who had the defensive wounds. And then going downstairs, I'm assuming what happened is that he ran into Ethan, because I'm thinking that, and this is my thoughts on it, is that Ethan went to pick up the DoorDash order. He went downstairs to get the DoorDash order. And that's who Bryan ran into in the hallway. And Bryan had to fight him or whatever happened. And I'm assuming that he's got the knife. He's in a frenzy because he's just taken care of the two girls upstairs, and he catches Ethan off guard. So he is able to do it pretty quickly. And then that's when Xana either sees or hears what's happening, and then that's when that is said, and then he continues to go to the room. That's kind of how I feel it went down, and I could be completely wrong. That's hilarious. Grace says, I heard the rumor of the bushy eyebrows before it came out in the document. I must have been paid off by someone to put that out. Oh, you must be Auntie Gull's nephew, Auntie Fran. Yeah. CJK, that's funny. Gray's going to be contacted by the Idaho authorities on his involvement, will be the new rumor. Well, you know how people are, the people that follow true crime aren't always the brightest and bulbs in the box. We have to remember that. And what is it that we say? Common sense isn't common. So, You know, Mitzi says living with a detective for many years has taught her a lot about predators. Oh yeah. I mean, I've learned so much, so much about them. And it's kind of, I mean, to me, you look at these people and you're like, how do these people live among us? How do we not know who they are? You know, how do we miss it? How do we not get that these people are capable of something like this? Was Bryan's family, were they surprised? Were his sisters surprised? I just don't. I mean, I've heard so many different things. I've heard all kinds of things about Bryan. We know that he was a heavy set kid in school. He was picked on, um, and bullied, whatever. He decided to change that scenario and lose his weight, which I commend him. As you guys know, where I come from that. I'm never going to put anybody down who has a weight issue. And it's a lot of hard work, and he put the work in and he lost his weight. He ended up with an addiction. It sounds like a pretty bad one, to heroin. Um, and and all of that. So he obviously has some serious emotional issues. I've heard a couple of different things about his family, so I don't know if we can truly stand by that or not. But I do believe that um, he seems to have a lot of the qualities. And if Deb is still in here from Deb's True Crime Web, she might be able to speak to this, because she's a pretty good expert on some of this stuff that we're talking about, when it comes to, are they psychopaths, are they sociopaths, and that predatory behavior. But it sounds to me like he has something against women. I don't know if it's because he has been rejected by women, or if it was, maybe that's what happened, or he was obsessed with Maddie. I think that he may have seen her. Maybe he saw her on Instagram. Maybe he saw her at work. Who knows? But he's got a problem with women. We have heard that. It's why he lost his job in Washington State University. He had a superior who was a woman, and he couldn't get along with her. And Deb is right here. I knew she was still here. He wants to destroy what he can't have. And that is, I can see that. I think that he had some sort of a fixation on Maddie. And she was taken. She had a boyfriend, and she probably didn't give him the time of day or told him whatever. And Lynn GMB is right, an incel. I do think that he thought he was going to get away with this. And I'm sure that when they came calling, and they made the raid, the FBI made the raid on his parents' home, he probably peed his pants, because I'm sure that was not what he was expecting. Although the fact that he was going through the trash with gloves, that he knew he was being watched, or there was a possibility that he was being watched. Oh, I think he definitely, control is an issue. Yeah. Yeah, David. Gray's got, like I said, Gray's got some really good stuff out there, both on Delphi as well as Idaho. He does a lot of great work, so you should check it out. He really knows how to put together these timelines. I think that's what I respect Gray for so well, is because his timelines are so easy to read, to understand. And I can't imagine anybody looking at them and not being able to say, oh, wow, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. Bryan Kohberger, you guys, has requested a Franks hearing. Now, where in the world did we hear that before? So that's on the table. That motion is out there. They are stating that law enforcement has lied. Just remember, that's hard to prove. I don't know how the law is in Idaho. I'm going to have to kind of brush up on that and see if I can brush up on what the law states in Idaho. Maybe I can get Frank Meister to help me with that, because he's so good at looking into that kind of stuff. And we can look at some of these filings. But yeah, the Franks motion I find interesting. Like I told you, there is a lot of parallels between this case and Delphi. True Crime Web says, I believe the traffic stops led to more paranoia and reinforced the need to wear gloves in PA. Probably, because I'm sure he didn't know why he was being stopped. That wide-eyed look that he had in that car was so creepy. I mean, so creepy. They haven't come out and said, Lynn, if there's a connection. I can tell you that Kaylee's family said that they knew of no connection between Bryan Kohberger and the girls. So the only thing that I can tell you is that if there was a connection, they weren't aware of it. I think he was watching them. And sadly, I think that Ethan and Xana were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Olivia, I agree with you. I believe one of the girls was targeted, and I do. I think that Xana and Ethan either were not expected to be there, or he figured they would be sleeping. I don't know, but I definitely don't think that he thought they would still be awake at that time of the morning. And Ethan, sometimes would sleep over or stay over, even though I believe he wasn't supposed to, according to house rules in his fraternity. But with that being said, I think he still did on occasion. And obviously, he was there that night, and they were obviously awake because of the DoorDash order for food. So, and like I said, when you look at this timeline of where Bryan Kohberger was, and the fact that he leaves his apartment at 2:30 in the morning, and what is the odds? What are the odds, you guys, of this stuff? I think that that's one of the things that you have to talk about when you're talking about these cases and you're looking at each piece of evidence. What are the odds? Is he the most unlucky SOB in the world? Seriously? I mean, how could you have all of this stuff kind of fall into place? You've got the exact car that's seen on video driving from Washington State University on the same road, seen going on the same path that it would go to Moscow. And then the same car is picked up in Moscow driving around the King Road address, back and forth, around and around and around, and then it's seen speeding away after the crime itself. I mean, you know, so there, like I said, there's been a lot of speculation on, did Bryan, he was a vegetarian. Did he go to the restaurant? Did he order food? Did he go there and did he run into her there? And is that where he became fixated on her? Or did he happen upon her Instagram? And she was very active on Instagram. Both of the girls were, and posted lots and lots of selfies and so forth, and they were beautiful girls. So is that what, is that what caused him to become fixated on one or both of them? We'll just have to wait and see. But that trial is scheduled for next August, and we're going to have jury selection in July. I don't believe there will be cameras in the courtroom for this. I just don't believe it. I don't believe that they will allow them. I think they're going to fight them. I think the defense is going to fight tooth and nail to keep the cameras out. And I think we're going to all be sad about that again, because, this is another case that I would love to be able to listen to. Maybe we can get Gray to go to the hearings. That would be awesome. Somebody needs to that's up in that area. I went to the Delphi case one day. I sat in court one day. It was a lot. I couldn't have done it more than the one whole day. That one whole day was so emotionally wrecking for me. It was a lot. And I didn't even hear the bad part. And that was the other thing about this case, that can you imagine, you guys, when we have to listen to the crime scene investigators and the technicians talk about what they came upon when they got to the house and all the things that they had to go through and see, the photos of all of that, talking about their injuries. I mean, we thought it was bad listening to what was said in court about what happened to Abby and Libby. This is going to be even just as brutal, if not worse. And so they no, Melissa, they have had cameras for the hearings, but the defense has requested no cameras for the trial. They don't want the publicity for him. Steve says, the odds are similar to laying out a map of the universe 100 yards away and me shooting an arrow striking the blue dot representing Earth. I agree. I absolutely agree. I do. And Gray's been up there, and he's done a lot. He went and visited Moscow and drove around and did he's got a whole bunch of videos of that. So to go out there and take a look at those. But yeah, I think when he got stopped in Indiana, he felt like they may be on to him, or at least he was scared that they might be on to him. He's a lot smarter than we think he is. Let's just remember that. And sadly, they're never as smart as they truly think they are, because they always make mistakes, don't they? And I think he made quite a few of them in this scenario. But again, we have an eyewitness who actually sees this person, and she's able to describe bushy eyebrows, tall. Just because you don't get an exact picture of who that person is, even how she's describing him, what are the chances that that's somebody else, given everything else? Do you see what I mean? It goes to the totality of the evidence. Guys, before I get off here tonight, I just wanted to say, for those of you that aren't aware, this week was the 8th anniversary of the Flora fires. Please remember Galen in your prayers this Thanksgiving, because these precious girls are missed so greatly. Kayani, Cariel, Kiara, and Kiana they're in my heart. When I went to Delphi for the trial, I stayed overnight. After that Friday night, I stayed with Rescue, all the dogs. And I stayed with Rescue and Mr. Rescue at her house down in Indianapolis. And I'm here to tell you what an amazing woman she is. But anyway, that next morning, she took me to visit the Flora 4 girls. We went to the cemetery. Her and Jinx and Kathy Clendenning had decorated the graves for Halloween. And it just made me cry, you guys. I mean, it was just beautiful and wonderful. I am so happy that those ladies make a point of taking care of those girls' grave sites and making sure that they're not forgotten, because I can't believe it's been 8 years. The case is still unsolved. My live tomorrow night will be all about Flora. So please tune in tomorrow at 8 p.m. for that. I am not getting back into doing lives 3 times a week. Trust me, guys. It's just that I thought, I really wanted to make sure that I got a live stream in for Flora on the anniversary, because it's important. And I really, really wish that I could get more people to cover the case. The more creators that we have, I love the fact that Sleuth Intuition, my good friend Sleuth, is covering it right now. He's covering Flora and talking about it. Doug Carter came out and had another interview just this past week or week and a half, where he said again, Galen is not a suspect in this case, and that, he's retiring in January, and this case is one that will haunt him, because he truly wanted this case solved before he retired. And, I believe it's solvable. I do believe that it's solvable. But one of the things that bothers me about this case so badly, the Flora case, is the fact that this county, Carroll County, Indiana, spent so much money to suppress a 911 tape. They took it all the way to the Supreme Court in the state of Indiana. And there is a reason for that. There is something that they do not want out there. Is it because there's something said on that tape that could cause them to be sued, or their pants sued off of them? What is it? There's something that is wrong, highly wrong with that whole scenario. And, all of the resignations and the people who suddenly just dropped out of their careers because of the Flora case, or right around the Flora case, is highly odd and suspicious, including the fire chief the state fire inspector, and Robert Ives, he retired, he quit. So I'm like, it's really crazy. But yeah, so I'm going to be covering Flora tomorrow. So I'm going to hop off here, guys. I'm really glad that you guys chose to hang out with me tonight. I have missed you all. Like I said, it's been really weird not talking about Delphi every day and not thinking about, well, what are we going to cover, and what else is going to be going on today, what other filings are going to be happening today, what motions are coming down. Oh, by the way, guys, I don't know if you guys heard or not, but the Menendez brothers hearing that was happening today on their resentencing has been postponed until January. So there's not going to be any decision or hearing or anything now until January. So that's what's going on there. I'm going to be covering that case as well. I lived through that case, just like I did through OJ. And so, and that case, I feel is something that needs talked about, because the stigma behind boys being sexually abused, back then, people didn't believe it happened. And we all know, after what happened to them and what happened to their parents in 1989, we know what came out in the 90s and in the 2000s with male boys and all of the sexual abuse that they've endured. So, but yeah, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful holiday. Please stay safe out there. And if you get a chance, pay it forward. Always, it doesn't take anything to be kind, and pay it forward. In this world that we live in right now, with all the hate and the nastiness, I'm telling you, it's daunting at times. It really is. It's sad in so many ways. But yeah, I thank my moderators who hang out with me for every live stream and keep everything nice and copacetic in the chat for me. I appreciate all of you so much. And the other thing I wanted to mention, if you guys didn't see Fig Solve's last video on Delphi, go watch it. I did post it on my community page. It's amazing, you guys. He did a really bang up job. I like the fact that we've got these people out here debunking a lot of the pro Richard Allen supporters, whatever. But yeah, his last video was fire. It was really good. And I'm, like I said, I'm really glad that we have these creators that are still out there doing that. And if for all of you, if you didn't know, Aspen is back home. As far as I know, Deb, he did make it back home, right? I know that I saw he was delayed. I haven't spoke to him, so but I saw that he was sitting in the Fort Wayne airport and that his flight had been delayed. And as far as I know, he did make it back home. I haven't seen that he didn't. So Aspen is no longer in Indiana. Okay, good. I thought that he probably had made it. I was going to reach out to him today, but I was too busy. Because I knew that he was missing his niece, and I was hoping that he was going to have some time with her, and I didn't want to interrupt that, but I'll have to reach out to him. I miss Aspen. I miss everybody. I miss all the people that I made relationships with and had over the Delphi case that I talked to daily. I miss you guys. It's weird, you know. Oh, and Ruckus is probably gone and in bed by now, but I'm going to get to see him soon, and I'm really looking forward to that. I wanted Ruckus to know I can't wait to see you. We're going to get to see each other real soon. Within the next 10 days, I hope. Yay! All right, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'm going to hop off here and go take Loki outside because I know that he's needing that. So I'm going to go do that, and I will see you guys all tomorrow night for my Flora night. Thanks for being here, and everybody take care.